She is the swarm that is approaching.
Really?
Yeah. Neuro happened. Like a lot.
Provoking black clouds in isolation.
I have to admit, I did enjoy her rendition of it.
It was pretty cool, yeah.
So, we are No Excuses, not Neurosama, on YouTube.com. With your favorite show hosts, Aristotle.
Venerian.
And Volcel, although I would argue that Ari is verging on Neurosama simping at this point.
Yeah,
since he seems
it's
a little else.
my Discord DMs will attest to that.
I don't think you can simp for a robot.
Gifts and...
You're giving it your best shot, though.
I have not ever donated money to a robot, or a real VTuber for that matter.
Yeah, I don't hold with donating money to people generally. Like, I'm happy to buy even trivial things off of them, but I don't really like donating money to people. Like, you can give money to actual charity, but if the person is not a charity case, like, as a general rule, you shouldn't give money to women you're not married to. Like, it's just not it's not the done thing.
Yeah, it just feels icky. You won't see me participating in Twitch actively live anything. So
Well, ooh, hello.
And,
Was that an S rank
an
this
S rank.
morning?
Correct.
Let us find it. So,
It's not hard.
what was I about to say before I got distracted by shiny things? Damn!
It's over here.
Oh, that was easy.
Yep, there's people already converging on it.
Yeah. So anyway, spiel.
If you would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusevtw at... I forgot where our mail server is. Gmail.
Gmail.
Right, if you'd like to contribute to the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which you can get to by clicking on the link provided in the description underneath the show archive on YouTube, and that is the best place to get in contact with the show hosts in any kind of real-time way. But if it's content you want to provide, the email is the better option, generally speaking, although most of the content that we get is Serethus telling us stuff about Doom and Doomer-likes.
There's
Boomer
nothing wrong with
shooters.
that.
Well, I remember they used to just be all called Doom clones when I was growing up in like the 90s.
Yeah,
If
never.
they
Boomer shooters
FPS,
are
like they
right.
didn't call them FPSs, they called them Doom clones.
Yeah.
Even if they were not done on the same engine.
Yes.
Like wasn't Rise of the Triad actually done on the Wolfenstein engine?
A version of it, I think. Yeah.
And that's why there's no angles other than 90 degrees in anything.
Yeah. Even the corridors that move at a 45-degree angle, everything is still angled 90 degrees.
Yeah, they just like zigzag in blocks. Man, I liked Rise of the Triad. I liked it more than most of the other FPSs that were competing with it at the
It
time.
was just so over the top and ridiculous. And they at least kept most of that for the remake.
Yeah. What what about the zigzag corners?
They
They
did
keep it.
not keep the zigzag corners.
Probably for the best.
Yes.
But yes. Boomer shooters.
Good times.
But,
Also, dog mode. That's all you need to know.
Yep, dog mode was definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Definitely a thing. I was never very good at those though. Like as the levels got more complicated, they would invariably end up relying on platforming, and platforming when you can't see your feet is always not the greatest of fun.
Yeah. Like, even in
And,
modern technology, platforming in a first-person perspective is always dicey.
Yeah, and it also hinged an awful lot on floating platforms that move up and down.
Yep.
Yeah, it just made it difficult to see where the intentions were for you to be able to go, because, you know, one of those circular floating platforms might be like moving back and forth up in the air or something, which is interesting and all, but you aren't necessarily going to be able to see it.
Yes.
Especially if your computer's terrible.
Or indeed any way of actually getting to the thing.
Yeah, I mean, the exploring is supposed to be half the fun in that, but I feel like the communication, the language of communication used by the stages tended not to be very robust.
Yeah.
And they had those instant death walls everywhere, which is an interesting conceit that you didn't see in any other FPSs, because it's sort of like a hang up from the earlier Apogee era, where they were specialized in platforms with instant death fields everywhere.
They did love those. At least it was very obvious what you were looking at in that case, though.
Yeah. A weird story, though. I didn't really understand it at all.
Yeah.
It did have multiple selectable characters with different stats, too.
Yes. They're all weird, too. They had
Well,
really
they were...
dumb stories.
Well, yeah, but they were supposed to be dumb action hero stereotypes.
They were. Good times. Anyway, let us dive into Rex, and unfortunately this week I don't have a whole lot. I sat down and watched a little bit of anime. I've caught up on Demon Slayer to the modern time now, and I'm eagerly awaiting the next episode because I think we're at the finale of Swordsman's Village now.
Still letting this arc run. I'm gonna watch it more in a burst once it gets.
I think it's over. It looked over to me.
If there's been another episode up in the last couple of days, I haven't seen it. So
I don't think so. I think it comes the next one would come out tonight, wouldn't it? Or tomorrow night or something.
something like that, yeah.
It seemed pretty over to me. Like the bad guy was dead,
Yep.
and I don't know what they would do next. Because it seems like, oh well, the arc is over. We're introducing the new arc.
We've got to wrap up our sad backstories first and put the main cast back in hospital where they belong.
No, the main cast is already in hospital.
All right,
Like they just haven't got there yet. Like the end of the episode, Tanjiro's in a cart being dragged back to hospital.
Yeah, okay, I am one episode behind then.
Everything is all right with the world then.
Yes,
Why is music starting?
because I was harvesting gazelles
Oh.
for Aether Charge.
You wanted antelope horns. Got it.
I want antelope souls, but I got horns, I guess. Stupid antelopes. Why the gobbies?
So we were going to do some Palace of the Dead, and we'll get to that, but we got an S rank spot on us as we were about to go in.
We got distracted by the shiny. As for my week, I didn't do a whole lot, really. I did dust off Satisfactory again, though, because they put in a big patch, and it's something I can autism my way at without paying much attention to it sometimes.
And was it satisfactory?
It is. They do still have the world's most satisfying big red button. And the world's most unsatisfying power down sound effect. They put a lot of effort into those. Which I think everyone really appreciates. Where's my cubby? I thought I had my cubby out. Apparently I don't. Alright.
Now we got full credit. We're good.
Yep, we're good.
I'll consider it a victory.
Yes, indeed.
100 poetics and 30 causality for nothing.
Oh, I'm capped on poetics. I need to go and figure out what to do with those.
Do we need to pull the brakes and let y'all go dump?
Nah, I don't care about poetics that much at the moment.
There's always more where those came from.
Yeah.
Even though you're about to hit level 70 on Summoner?
I've already got summoner gear in the wings.
You got a full level 70 set?
I think so. Let's see. Was it? No, that one. That one. Okay. Let me see. I've got... No, where is it? I need to clear out my inventory because it's a mess. But,
Yeah, when
there it
Hrothgar
is.
is sitting down on a chair, it always looks to me like they're sitting on the toilet.
Does a bit.
Yeah.
Don't mind me. I'm just pooping
Yeah.
in the sky.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna hang out on the roof over here.
So yeah, I've got a full set of Skaven.
Alrighty.
Already burned those poetics.
Yeah, we totally should play Vermintide.
We should. So yeah, that's basically been my week. Is a little bit of autism and a bit of anime, and that's it. The rest of it has just been work because we're still stuck on the death march.
How's
Yeah,
our farm economy look? Oh,
Pretty good.
yeah, we're fine.
Yeah. Haven't had any solid bites on new employees yet, but we're staying optimistic. There's been a few nibbles, but it's the kind of people who just can't.
You didn't sound very
necessarily hire.
optimistic a week or two ago.
Yeah, I know what this thing is like. Like, we could be looking for people for months sometimes until the right candidate comes along.
Have you have you made a decision about whether you're keeping the business or not?
Oh, we're going to be selling it.
Definitely.
Yep, it's just a.
Is that in the time frame of months or years or decades?
We're waiting on a few bits of paper to come through, which will determine when the sale happens. But if it stays on the right course and nothing happens, it could be a potential of having it on the market within the month.
Mm-hmm.
But how long that takes to sell is a completely different matter.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like there would be very many buyers in your neck of the woods, unless Uber wants to buy it out so they can shut it down. I don't know if Uber does that kind of thing.
No, they don't. They can't, actually, by Australian law, thankfully.
It's that antitrust.
Yep. Yeah, as bad as it was that the Uber forced Queensland Transport and the state government to rewrite their laws to accommodate them, they didn't get everything their own way. They still have to abide by a lot of the same laws that the taxi service does.
They've been doing some real scumbag things overseas. My goodness,
Ooh.
like blackmailing their drivers and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Like drivers who like I remember seeing a thing about drivers being threatened with being cut off from the service if they refuse to take fares into dangerous neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We ain't got to go exploring, guys. We got plenty of homes.
All right. Yeah, there is a gold over there if you really want it.
Which is like that's just a lesser well they're saying it's because of racism, basically.
Yeah.
They're saying it's racist to refuse to take a fare into a dangerous neighborhood, but they used it in order to counteract the industrial action in France.
Okay.
So in France, well, the French, if you know anything about the political environment, they will go on strike and stage a protest over literally anything on earth. Right.
Yes.
So naturally, when Uber showed up in France, all of the taxi union folk went out in the street to protest, and when the French protest, they burn down half of Paris every time. That's just the way they do things.
It is what they do.
So, in order to try and diffuse this, the thing is that the heads of Uber are actually in good with the higher placed people in Macron's administration. And what they did, basically, was that they had their drivers' routes were purposefully directed to go through protests. So that
I remember
that the unionists would see the scabs and attack them, so that Uber could play the victim, and the government would have an excuse to shut down the protest.
Mm.
Like that's some pretty scumbag scheming.
That is, and it's hardly the first scummy thing they've done. Oops. We've got friends, apparently.
Yeah, there's a luring trap in there.
Oh, great.
Oh, no. You got
What are you
petrified?
doing?
I got petrified. In a cool pose, admittedly, but still petrified.
I would not call that a cool pose on my screen. That looked like you were terrified and looking in your book.
Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit!
Okay, we can leave.
But yeah, anyway, we're not going. I don't want to get too bogged down on the scumminess of Uber because it's becoming pretty much public knowledge at this point.
Well, that doesn't stop people using them exclusively.
Yeah, because they are still the fashionable thing, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Well, they have-
it's also corporate policy to use Uber for a lot of companies now.
I'd be
But,
very, very skeptical of such a policy.
Well, it's just that it's a policy that you would make on a pure cost basis, though, right?
It would be, yeah.
That's the only thing that you look at.
Oh,
and-
no.
Why have you done this?
What have you done?
I forgot what type of aggro they all are, and 2 are proximity and 1 is sound, even though it has 100 eyes.
Those eyes are actually ears. It lied.
But yeah, I personally have never hired an Uber before.
Yeah.
I have been laughed at for not hiring Ubers before, but frankly, I would rather hire a cab because that way I know that they are obliged to maintain at least some level of professional standards,
Yes.
and the cab will probably be clean.
Yes.
Probably.
Probably.
And I can complain if it's not.
You won't reach in somebody's back seat and feel some crumbs scraping their way across your fingers.
Crumbs would be a step up from what you find in Ubers.
Well, it'll feel like crumbs, but you maybe don't want to think too hard about what it actually is.
Yeah.
It's the used condoms you want to look out for.
Thankfully, I haven't encountered those ever. I've found plenty of other questionable things, but not the used rubbers.
Want to hoard.
Gotta get the treasure. Get the treasure.
What are we talking about?
My week, of which there is precious little. But yeah, there's a few other games that I did have a very brief poke at. I poked at V Rising to see what they've done with their new big patch, and they've overhauled just about every system. Apparently their next major patch is going to be their 1.0 patch, so we'll see with that. Sadly though, their vampires still have absurdly long necks, and I don't think that's ever going to change.
The giraffe pyres.
Yeah.
They're just all Ellison when they were alive.
They are.
In other words, they're French.
They are. Well, you do wear plenty of ruffles in a lot of your clothing.
I wonder if the Ellison run the banking cartels in Eorzea.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the potatoes.
Yeah, the potatoes definitely. Like, they're famous for it.
Yeah. That's the exit room over there. Alright, so I think I'm just going to leave my week at that because I don't have anything to talk about.
Well, Vol, we just had a part of the week we could talk about in your week.
Oh, no.
Well, you see, we was trying to do a few of the raids, weekly story mode raids before the show, and it seems like some of the more mediocre healers are out to play this afternoon.
Yeah.
Oop, doubles.
That petrify is not a line of sight, or not a look away. It is just a cone that will petrify you.
Oop. An untelegraphed cone, which is interesting.
Yeah, don't see very many untelegraphs in Palace, but that one is one of them.
Yeah, it's non-fatal, at least on its own, it's not fatal.
Yeah, there were some special healers. Lots of mug shots out tonight. It was
It was interesting.
I don't know how we get people still clowning it up this many weeks in, but we seem to get just the most bang up groups.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just that because we don't play Savage, people just assume that they can turret in story mode and that somebody else will take care of all the mechanics because the mechanics are so simple. The problem is that even though mechanics are simple in story mode, it's still Final Fantasy, meaning that simple mechanics are still lethal.
Yes, you still
If
have to
people
move.
just don't do them or assume it's somebody else's problem, the entire group will still die as a result.
Yep.
Yeah, and somehow, in our last fight, we had a whole lot of clownishness going on.
Of which I was responsible for some of it, because apparently my brain just sort of faded into the background and I went on autopilot and got myself killed.
I mean,
But
we're all
that
guilty of
didn't
that.
seem to actually be the problem because I was standing in on full health when things really hit the fan.
Yeah, you were back alive, and I'm not sure what killed everybody. Fern disconnected,
Yeah.
and so we were a man down. Maybe you weren't alive for stack ups either, but the healers were just bad. And
Yeah,
I think
I did notice that in both the second and the third bosses, we were taking an enormous amount of damage from conventional group damage mechanics.
Yeah.
Like people would get down to a third health every time one of them went off, which means that no preemptive measures were being taken place, no group mitigation was being thrown out except by the tanks.
Yeah. I was throwing out Tactician on cooldown. And
The tactician is
it's
a
only
normal
10%.
10%. And it's not the sort of 10% that seems to be able
change
to be
much.
produced by healers.
That's
yeah,
it.
it's not the 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the 10% healers get that is 10% in air quotes.
Yes, it is 10%, and that's all you get, maybe, if you're lucky. That's it. I think it did save us at one point there, so...
It wouldn't be hard because people taking so much damage left and right, and the healers were both not doing anything preemptive and taking a long time to patch up the damage.
Yeah.
And as far as I could tell, despite being able to see what was going on, they also weren't doing, like, in chain bursts of damage, they weren't doing any healing during the chain bursts. They were just waiting for it to be over.
I don't think I ever actually saw during the big boss nuke phases the usual turtle up that you see in those.
Yeah, I didn't see any fields go out of any kind. I did see the bell a
Yeah, I saw
couple
the bell out a
times.
few times. But
But most of the mitigation was me having to do long wings and Vol doing his warrior shenanigan stuff, and me losing threat because of it.
yes.
Yeah, because I generate a lot of healing, and I also was healing Aristeel in addition because his health kept dipping perilously low.
Yeah, I was letting it rock because I knew my spellcasted phase was coming up, but I was playing chicken with it pretty close for a while.
Okay, there we go. So
It
that
was pretty rough. And then in the third boss, when he had single digit % left, but then all of a sudden everything fell apart, and
I'm not
everybody
entirely
was
sure
dead.
how. Like, they all just died.
yeah. I disconnected, and then apparently I came back and everything had just gone pear shaped completely.
Yeah, so me and Vol had to two-man the boss.
Yes,
And,
everybody else just had to play spectator.
Yes.
So it took us a while, but we got that last 7%-ish off the boss. And not entirely sure why it got that bad, but it did.
Yes, well, everybody on look and was like, "Oh, tanks actually take damage challenge, impossible."
Yeah, it was, we were never in any danger during that 7%. It just took a while. There was one stack up, and I just hollow grounded it.
Yeah, if there had been multiple stack ups that had
Oh, great.
come end on end, then we might have ended up in trouble. But we could have still figured out a way through it. I mean, it's not designed to be very difficult. I did not expect for us to take Eunomia and not even manage to lose our shields, though.
Yeah,
So-
I popped Divine Veil, and you popped whatever the Shake It Off thing is, I think. And our shields just didn't get shoot through.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe they need to tune up the damage on the story mode a little bit, but if they did, I dread to think what would happen.
Like, you saw what happened to our group with that damage.
Yeah. But I don't know why. I mean, it must have been easily preventable. Even stacks, though, like if you stack with half the group, normally that's enough to mitigate the stacks. If half the group aren't doing their job and are asleep at the wheel,
Yeah.
you still end up usually fine.
That said, if you have one of those stack up markers and nobody stacks up on you, you go squish, as I found out.
Yeah, there was one on
Yeah.
one of the fights where you just got it, and I didn't even see it, and was
Yeah.
like, oh, uh-oh.
Well,
Eh.
it's a tricky one that occurs at a time where everybody just has to run out of the circle, and if everybody chooses a different direction, then they could all end up moving the stack up person off their screen and not being able to see him.
Yeah, in this case, it was I moved far enough to move out from behind the rock so I'd be more visible. And that was as far as I went. And yet I had maybe one person stack up on me, if that. So
Yeah, you got squished.
I got smushed.
Yeah, and I think that is why Final Fantasy is like it's got more longevity as a casual game than World of Warcraft does, because what we're doing is the equivalent of LFR.
Yep.
It's the same. It's the same thing except for Final Fantasy, but the experience is radically different.
Yes.
Like the level of badness that we experience today is, that's a conventional level of LFR badness.
Wait
nothing-
until the silence wears off before you try and open that chest, please.
I'm a summoner.
There's
I
nothing-
can't do anything while silenced.
Nothing particularly unusual about the badness part of it, but there was a distinct lack of rage and recrimination after
Yeah.
the fact.
Everyone just got
That-
back
that-
up, dusted themselves off, and off we go again.
There's also a very distinct, the tanks have the tools to deal with this because tanks are busted right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just that. I think it's like everybody. And the thing is, by contrast, like we had a situation where lots of people kept dying on the regular, and we, through judicious use of our class abilities, pulled through in the end. And this is just the way that it goes in LFR when something goes sideways. In the story mode, in LFR, things don't go sideways ever under normal circumstances.
Unless
Like,
someone's
the
seriously
mechanics-
clowns.
The mechanics have been nerfed to the point where they can just be ignored.
Hmm.
There is no element about the fight that engages people, and so they can spend all that excess energy just being mad about things.
That's a resolution.
Yeah,
It's
versus
It's the worst way to do casual content, basically.
Just-
LFR, they do the casual content in such a way that the content of that content doesn't matter. You don't need to attend to it.
Yeah.
The content in FF14 in casual is like almost, but not quite infinitely recoverable. But you actually have to play the game in order to do the recovery.
Yeah, which is why I like the Vul stack mechanics. Like you get one, and if you goof up, it's not the end of the world. You're still good. But if you goof again,
Well-
you're probably gonna get smushed.
well, if you're vol, you get like 5 or 6.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I am the stat collector.
You got to get them cheese puffs. But yeah, it's a good way of doing it. Like you can goof and recover from it, and that's fine. But you goof too
When I was
much.
younger, I was
and you're
allergic to
useless.
cheese puffs.
Okay.
They gave me hives.
Huh.
Yeah.
Is it the questionable materials they use to make that cheese dust?
It's the material that they use to make the cheese dust orange.
Yeah.
The artificial colouring I was
Orange,
allergic to.
Yeah. Orange number whatever.
It's like yellow 110B or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah. That's a truly appetizing name.
Yeah, but in Final Fantasy is if you get in a situation like we were in, you can put on your tryhard hat if you gets down to just 2 people left, and you might be able to salvage it. And we didn't have to screw the tryhard hat on that hard.
Well, no, because we's tanks.
No, it went from we're just gonna treat this like a target dummy to we might have to actually use some thought with our button pushing.
Yeah, if you're a tank and you see that the jig is up with playing casually and you've got to pay some attention, you can usually get it done. And like I've shown the same thing before in Dead Ends. Remember when all the group except me wiped on the boss because we did the dance wrong, and then I just soloed the boss down the last 20%. Because you can do it as soon as everything goes sideways and you switch on the I'll take this seriously, like in an anime or whatever.
Yeah.
You can usually pull through on the easier content. That's sort of one of the things that I think is a little bit less attractive to people about Savage compared to Mythic in World of Warcraft raids, though. In that, in Mythic, occasionally you can accomplish heroic things. You can occasionally have the person who manages to improvise something incredible and pull out a win. Whereas that just doesn't really happen so much in Savage and in Final Fantasy XIV because the mechanical requirements of the numbers you have to generate are so tight,
Yeah,
especially
and-
early on in the tier, that you really don't have much room for error. It's like, what level of perfection is your dance at? And that apparently is especially true in Omega Protocol. Like, Omega Protocol is particularly vicious about that, about the precision of your dance. Whereas there's a bit more latitude for creativity in Dragon Song Reprise. So like, there's the popular opinion at the moment seems to be that Dragon Song Reprise is the best boss fight that has ever been made in Final Fantasy XIV, and that Top is one of the worst.
Okay.
It's simply because Omega Protocol is just so stingy on the numbers. It's like doing a raid boss who's an accountant.
I mean, essentially it is.
Yeah. The rigidness of Savage rating is the reason I haven't not even considered it a possibility.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
it
it's
just
not
doesn't
even
sound
just
fun
it's
to
not
me.
even just about the like. It's not really that I don't think it's fun. Like, I think that doing the challenge would be fun if I had a regular group to play with. Maybe I would do it. But the real obstacle is, for me, is not the challenge. It's the I would feel obliged to be perfect, and if I was not perfect, I would feel like everything was my fault.
Yeah, I just there's a trap somewhere in this room.
There it
Other
is.
than that one.
Not
That's
that
the-
one.
Okay, so there's still a trap somewhere in this room.
That was a silver chest that we had no reason to open.
But it's shiny. You got to touch the shiny. Also, there's no mimic, so it's just touch it for the sake of touching it at this point.
But yeah,
Anyway, that's been basically the limit of my Final Fantasy 14 so far this week. I have not been playing, have not logged on.
See? Got to touch.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
There's
take
not
my-
even an Uni in there.
Nope, no
It
unis.
could be. It could bug out.
I don't think it's going to bug out.
Not in such
It's
a
probably
consistent
not going to
way.
bug out.
Spaghetti code basically militates against fortuitous bugs in
Hey.
a sort of ironic fashion by having everything all siloed and inefficient.
Hey, sometimes there's meatballs on that spaghetti.
But meatballs, eh?
Yeah.
For some reason, when I was in school, meatball was the nickname for students who boarded at the school. I never was able to understand why, and nobody ever was willing to explain it to me. So it was probably something lewd.
Probably.
Meatball is also the name of a certain political candidate right now.
I see.
I got a mimic.
Why did you get a mimic?
Got to touch the shinies.
So yeah, what have I done? Last week I talked about my time playing in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I haven't had time to resume that playthrough yet. So yeah. So in that week, I read through quite a reasonable chunk of the story of Blue Archive up to date. I think
Mhm.
I'm because they obviously they have deployed the whole story unlock thing so that you don't need to grind through the levels in order to read the story. I'm up to somewhere in if it was grinding, if it was locked behind the grinding, I'm up to somewhere around where you would need to be about level 60 some. And so I'm miles ahead of my actual level since, it's stamina based leveling, so you can't level faster than a certain amount if you're a free to player. But yeah, I very much am enjoying the story. It's very silly and entertaining, but also has its dramatic moments at the same time. They've got a reasonably good balance, I feel, much like Pinecone before it, between the serious and the very silly. Yeah, so I finished chapter 1 of Clockwork Pavane, which is it's basically just a silly story, that one. It's to introduce the character of Eris. And it plays out sort of like
Alright, you want to see
Like-
something funny? Everybody? Everybody pop a resolution and just blow this guy up.
I don't know where it is in the. There we go.
The very last one.
star-shaped one.
Okay.
We
Alright,
won't need them.
Frickin' lasers. Judge.
You do still need to dodge the stuff, but
But it's bullying, really. To
This
be
is.
honest. Oh, we did this with strength on both of us once as well, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm the only one with strength right now.
Gotta get your judgment on. There we go.
That was a boss.
His name is
but yeah,
also
the-
rather appropriate.
The story more or less plays out like like the last 4 episodes of a cute girls doing cute things in a school club story.
Are there any moments that top? Oh, I guess we're doing this then. All right,
No.
face.
The
face
entire
mask on.
story, is I guess we're doing this. Like, I don't. I'm trying to think of what I can say that's not spoilers. But basically, the games development club gets cornered on something that they need to do, and so they decide to functionally declare war on Seminar in order to get what they need done. Which means they've got to go up against. They are a bunch of dweebs, and the only people on their side are Veritas and the Engineering Society, and they have to go up against Seminar and Cleaning and Clearing at the same time.
Oh dear.
And hijinks ensue, basically. So, for those not listening, Seminar is the Millennium Student Council. They hold all the administrative power, and Cleaning and Clearing are the Millennium Black Ops.
Because of course.
So they do all of the military stuff, and the games development club are a bunch of if it were not for the fact that that the story takes place at a school, they would be neats. And Veritas are all of the sort of misfit hacker types, and the engineering club are basically mad. Largely mad about explosives, but mostly mad. And so basically it's one of those team of misfits takes on the establishment and accidentally is their way to success.
Fern, just so you know,
Mm.
those gargoyles hurt,
Oh, they do. Ow.
and that dot is going to continue to chew through your health by a lot.
Oh no.
You can use physics, you'll be
I
fine.
can match physics. It's fine. Yeah, I tried Blue Archive, and honestly, even though I know there's that.
Ooh, pain. Manticore's hurt too.
Yeah, Medicore's hurt. Yeah, I know there's that really silliness content coming up, but I just couldn't get through the waifu wall, I guess I'll call it. Because
Well, that's what type of game it is.
It
like,
is.
You've got that's something you have to be able to swallow going in. That there are going to be very few male characters,
yeah,
and all of the male characters are going to be villainous ones, basically.
yeah, but I think they lay it on a little bit thick right at the start of the game, and it's like just turns me right off. Like Pinecone didn't have that problem because the 3 characters you meet are what? A klutz, a bitch, and Coco. So they're not idealized and all of that. It's just they're a lot more interesting and fun characters. Where the ones that you meet at the start of Blue Archive are just kind of vanilla waifu.
Well, that's because they're the starter characters and they're not very
Yeah.
not very well, you find out a little bit more about them for the most part. They don't necessarily change very much, like functionally in terms of where they slot into the character archetypes. Like Yuka is going to be your Carol replacement. She's less caustic than Carol, but she's the token Cinderer.
I'm bringing this one up.
Chinatsu is sort of like she's a transfer from the I can't remember what they're called, the Gehenna's Emergency Response Club, basically. It's Gehenna's medical team. She's a transfer to the Gehenna's prefect team. So she is, integral to, but she's the newbie, but integral to one of the key political factions within Gehenna. So she becomes more important later on when you start to get a picture of the political situation between Gehenna and Trinity. And Hasumi is like the brains behind the Trinity Justice Task Force and the most militant Gehenna hater in the school, other than maybe that's spoilers to mention who else. But she's extremely politically important to the function of Trinity, especially where their conflict with Gehenna is concerned. And her character is more or less focused on her constant war against her weight and her constant inability to understand where she's putting on weight, which is obvious to anyone with a pair of eyes.
Well, it's 2 places, I guess, technically.
Well, yeah, technically 2 places. But she doesn't understand this, and she seems to be completely oblivious to her own physique to nearly passion lip level.
Oh dear.
It is. I feel so bad for her in her track uniform every time she does her super.
Yeah, it's trying its best to keep everything contained.
Gainax would be proud.
Definitely. But
she steps on that scale and it goes beep 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 beep, and she just has a freak out and flips the table.
There's always a good table flip.
The introductory sequence doesn't really chain on to anything.
Yeah.
It only lays a trivial amount of groundwork for the primary stories, to the point where I'm sort of a bit confused about why it's there, because it doesn't seem to have much to do with anything as of yet. Like, it introduces the Shetem chest, which seems to be important to some extent to the Decagrammaton plotline, in that it seems to be sort of like an artifact that is inexplicably higher level technology than anything else that exists within the world for reasons that nobody can explain. And it sort of introduces like the 3 main schools, Trinity, Gehenna, and Millennium, by the 3 main characters that you use therein. And the situation with the fact that there is a general student council. Oh great, we just tripped a fun time bomb. It sort of gives you an introduction to the fact that there's a general student council, but they've pretty much been defanged because of the absence of the general student council president. I couldn't get my heel off in time. Too many things hitting me.
I probably should witch in that. Oh well. Let's take this guy for a walk.
Yep, take this guy for a walk. I'll take this guy, I guess.
You could res me. That's also an option. But instead you're just going to stand there and die, are you? Oh, thank you!
I got it. I got the drill came back up.
Gotta love Swiftcast res. Hang on, something's coming.
Yeah, I see it.
Or was that Vol? That must have been Vol.
No, that was the kid and the gargoyle stomping over there.
Ah.
I'm just we don't need to play with them. We can get off this cursed floor.
Yep.
But yeah, so Clockwork Pavane is basically to introduce Eris, to introduce the games development club, who are going to be sort of important going forward, because basically the games development club are a catalyst for storytelling, because they are the sorts of people who will just take a harebrained idea in mind and then run with it. That was a bad idea.
That was a bad idea. So yeah, I'll give it another go since I am through the initial tutorial, and yeah, the tutorial does not do the game any favors.
Just get to the Foreclosure Task Force and
read Foreclosure Task Force 1 and 2. Like, those ones are to be read back to back, and it's basically like, it's just hijinks. It's a hijinks a school club anime story. It's basically like, have you ever watched the anime for Love Live?
I have not.
Well, basically it's about there's a small group of girls, their school is shutting down because it's not profitable anymore, and they're going to concoct a cockamamie scheme to save it. Well, the principle is the same with Foreclosure Task Force, except the scheme is excessively more cockamamie than normal.
I don't think we need to go in there.
It is even more pants on head retarded than what you're thinking.
Right. So, yeah.
And that particular turn of events, you will be pleased to know, Aristeele, does not go forgotten at the end of that plotline. I don't want to spoil it, but the particular group of individuals who execute on the particularly ridiculous plan become an urban legend of sorts that is known throughout Kivotos.
I see. Oh man.
And they get brought up again, and what's more, they get brought up again at a particularly crucial and dramatic moment where their presence is completely out of tone. And they suddenly become, like, a thing that tips the scales.
Oh man, I need to watch the second half of that story.
That's not in the second half of the story. The second half of the story is mainly about. The second half of the story is a series of hints being aggressively dropped about that. There's a dark underbelly to Kivotos, and that there's an extensive project underway by several factions to abuse and manipulate the power that the various characters have. Because as it becomes very obvious, the characters are all nearly indestructible, extremely militarily powerful, and have no concept that this is the case. It's just normal to them. That you can just, shoot guns at each other and nothing bad happens.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you really think about it, does it?
No.
They don't have any strong consciousness that this is the case. It's just normal to them. They don't understand that.
We'll take that rage into the next floor.
Yep.
We should have that door open soon.
If you can, that one.
One of you can strong. I still got 5 minutes on my strong. There you go.
Yeah, I'm already stonged, so.
So that's the Foreclosure Task Force is basically about setting the backdrop through a self-contained story. The story is self-contained, but as the Foreclosure Task Force club president becomes more central to the plot, it becomes evident that there are several individuals, more than one of which seems to be located in Abydos for some reason, are central to accomplishing some particular end that's not especially clear that is being carried out by Gematria, who are also a shadowy organization. There's very little explanation for how they got there, because they seem to be outsiders to Kivotos, and what exactly they're trying to accomplish. But Clockwork Pavane Chapter 1 is a story that's pretty much isolated from all of that and is just a goofy story, although it will touch on various things around the edges, and will introduce a bunch of other unexplained stuff.
Fern, open that treasure chest back there when I turn to a Manticore. I'm just going to find the nearest mob and bop it, because there's no way it doesn't open the door.
Alright. Let me know when you're ready.
I gotta find something to bop. There's some boppage. Okay, go.
Okay.
There's a boot in the exit room in the way.
A boot?
Okay, I'm coming. I'm stomping.
I'm scampering.
He will paralyze. You will be struck by boot.
So the first two chapters to read are the Foreclosure Task Force 1 and 2. The next chapter is Clockwork Pavane 1, which is sort of like a breather story, because it gets pretty sort of tense toward the end of Foreclosure Task Force 2. And then you read the three first chapters of Eden Treaty in a row. And it's basically, if you read them all back to back, it becomes a very, well, that escalated quickly sort of story. Because it starts off framing itself more or less the same. Oh, what have you done? What have you done?
Kill the gargoyle first.
It starts off framing itself as though it's going to be a Cute Girls club story again, and then very quickly escalates into a massive political situation.
Right.
And basically the Cute Girls Club sort of framing device doesn't ever go anywhere. Like, they're still there, and they're still the key players in the story, but they end up being the key players in the story for sort of unexpected reasons. Like, they all just by chance happen to be tied to various factions that are critical to the way things will go forward. Because they're all sort of like they're the down and outers of their respective groups for the most part. But yeah, it's an interesting story that escalates very quickly. I am not all the way through Eden Treaty 3. I'm pretty close to the end of the story, I think, because while it is true that you don't need to grind through the levels anymore to unlock the story, and it is also true that for story missions, they generally give you... Oh, what have you done?
I was on the wall. There's a donut room. Oh, there are two gargoyles. This may mandate responses.
Yeah. That one's down.
The there are some sucker punches in the story. There is. I've encountered 2 fights that are massively off the difficulty curve. That normally they supply you with all the troops you need and they're trivial. Like that remains true all the way through. Like when you have to do a game mission within the story, it's just a framing device. It's just to give you a sense that an action is taking place at this point in the story. Except that there are a couple of times where that's not the case, and you get kicked in the nads. Time 1 is... It took me a while to get through it. I had to retry it quite a number of times. And it seemed, by the time that I managed to figure it out, it seems that there's actually a trick to it. If you try and play it casually, the way you can like brute force overpower every other mission up until that point, you will get your shit kicked in repeatedly. You can't do that. The combination of characters they give you is not capable of brute forcing the situation. However, it is actually really easy to overcome once you figure out how to exploit the mechanics that are actually given to you. So it's kind of a puzzle. The problem is that they don't let on at any point that it's a puzzle. It just seems like an incredibly frustrating fight initially.
Yeah.
But as you try lots of different things, eventually you'll find out ways that you can get through it. And if you happen to be good at the game, you'll get through it instantly because you understand the mechanics well enough to know what you're supposed to do. But because I was just sort of like blithely going through the story, I don't have a clue how the mechanics in the game work. I know it just barely enough to keep progressing. But yeah, it was an interesting challenge. I got very frustrated initially until I realised how it was you were supposed to be using the mechanics, rather than simply just using them as effectively damage bursts or stat sticks. You've got to be a little bit cleverer than that, and I'm very bad at tactics games, so it took me quite a while to twig what you're supposed to do. So that one was kind of rough, and then there's a one following it that I'm currently on, where you have to fight a boss, and that one I'm stuck on because due to the story circumstances, you have to use your own troops. You have to use characters that you yourself have raised. And if you've got a bad distribution of characters, then it can be quite difficult. I'm a little bit underleveled for it, I think. I'm not exactly sure what level the stage is. I think it feels like it's about level 60, so I'm underleveled. Although normally you've got about 15 levels of play, so I'm not too far off. But I also don't have a very good roster for the particular fight. So I don't know whether or not I'll be able to get through it anytime soon. I'll have to spend some time tooling around with it and try some different combinations of characters and seeing if there's some that work particularly well. Because I think I was able to survive for quite a while, even though I wasn't able to overcome the fight. So I think that if I'm more careful about how I put together the team, maybe I'll be able to squeak through. So we'll have to wait and see about that. But yeah, it was an interesting fight, but it is one of the few times that the game will cock block your progress through the story for story reasons, basically.
Man,
but yeah,
it's not the return to Cheerbot, is it?
No. Cheerbot is event exclusive. No, Millennium is not involved in the story of Eden Treaty, except as sort of like a bystander. Like Millennium is a bystander to the Eden Treaty because one of the reasons motivating the formation of the Eden Treaty is the fact that there are not just two big dogs in Kivotos anymore. Because if you follow the story, Millennium is a new school. Whereas Trinity and Gehenna are both old schools, and they have been at each other's throats for the longest time because it was just the two of them. So they were in balance with each other. But now there are three, and if Gehenna and Trinity spend all their time beating each other up, then Millennium will simply rise to the top.
I see. Oh man, I almost got excited just now when I saw no heals allowed.
Oh.
Yeah, but there's no storms.
I was ready to make a whoa noise, but no.
Disappointment.
Instead, potions go.
Potion go burr.
Yeah, so because Blue Archive is on an accelerated schedule to try and catch up to JP. Christmas was also this past week, and
Christmas
New
in
Year
June.
will be next week.
Ooh,
Why did I open that?
I don't
Why did I
know.
open that on a floor with no regen?
It's a treasure chest in a dungeon. You gotta touch it.
I'm
These are
gonna
the
get that
rules.
Wraith. Yeah, I haven't played it all in the past 2.5 weeks. So-
I have managed. Apart from doing the story in the weekend, I did not really play much except to log on and do some dailies to try and at least spend most of my stamina, rather than letting it cap all the time. But I haven't made a lot of progress at all. I haven't made a lot of progress at all in terms of building my account, but I have done the story parts because that's really what I'm there for. The Christmas story is incredibly silly. Like,
Strong.
It's
Uh,
mostly it seems to be to introduce the character of Mine, who is the head of the unfortunately named Remedial Knights.
oh dear.
In the original Japanese, they were called the Knights Hospitaller,
That's a bit better.
which is, you know, an actual order of knights.
Yeah. So why the change?
Considering, I don't know. There's no explanation for it because they're the Trinity Medical Club.
Yeah.
And naming considering that all of Trinity is sort of like a Western European themed school, you know, Anglo-Saxon themed school especially,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense to use, you know, the Knights of the Hospital as one of their clubs, since sort of like the very Germanic Teutonic school theme is used for Gehenna, their opponents. But yeah, there's no reason for them to change the name of that club to the Remedial Knights because it just makes them sound like they're retarded. But yeah, they did do that. I don't know why. Doesn't make any sense. And they've done that in a few places, that they've localized something in a way that just makes it sound kind of dumb. Because there's a lot of very clever allusions in the story, like there being a sort of like a shadowy subfaction of that splintered off and formed a satellite of Trinity called the Area Satellite School, which is a satellite to Trinity General School. There's a rage in there.
No, I'm trying to find the exit to see how much we gotta clear to it. Not in there.
But and that's sort of like an interesting illusion because that was the big controversy of the 4th and 5th centuries, was the Arian controversy, where the heresiarch Arius had introduced it was the head of a movement suggesting that Christ was an individual made of the same substance as God, but not consubstantial with God, which was like the big Christological controversy that basically nearly overtook the church in the early years.
Mm.
But this is where our saying, if you've ever heard the saying, not an iota,
Yeah.
like the iota that they're referring to is from the Greek word homoiousios, I think, something like that. Because there are two words, homoousios and homoiousios, and homoousios means consubstantial, of the same substance, and homoiousios means of similar substance. So the difference being one letter is the difference between the entirety of the church going down one path or the other path, depending on what word was chosen for the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed. The creed would differ by one letter, and that would change the Christological verdict.
Okay.
Mm.
Vol, go stand by the chest back there, and when I turn to a Manticore, pop it. I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
gonna punch my
an
way through
angry-looking room ahead.
Headed up and headed back. Did we clear any traps out of that room?
I don't think so.
No.
But yeah, so there's a lot of clever naming that has been done in there, except that sometimes the localizers have just trodden on it for no good reason. But yeah, so next week is the New Year's event, and it's probably going to be equally silly. And since my habit is to basically imprint on the first waifu who carries me through the early part of the game and then simp for them for the rest of eternity, I will have no choice but to roll for New Year's Haruna. So it uses the same principle as Pinecone in that if you do bond events and get bonus stats for it, those carry over to all characters of the same name. Oh, I have a friend. There's a friend that's chasing me.
Hang
But
on, just get away
so
from that.
it's beneficial certainly to have multiple characters of the same name.
Especially when you
but,
get multiple bond events for different versions.
Yeah, but so the banner students are New Year's Fuka and New Year's Haruna. Both of them are quite good. New Year's Haruna, in fact, is very meta. I mean, not New Year's Fuka is very meta. New
Okay,
Year's
Paul, get
Haruna
ready
is
to pop
decent.
open that rage.
Oh, where was it? Over here.
Yeah, there's a dude
Okay.
coming.
Hey. Run.
But,
Pull,
yeah.
like 40 seconds out of this on this next
It
one.
would be nice to get New Year's Fuka, since I like her as a character, and she goes together a lot of the time with Haruna in the story, since they are frenemies, I guess. No, that's not even the right term. Basically, Haruna has an extremely high opinion of Fuka, and the way she expresses this is by repeatedly kidnapping her,
As you do.
because Fuka is a brilliant cook. Like, she's rather put upon because she's the head of the school lunch club at Gehenna. And so she basically runs the cafeteria, and she's an incredible cook. But, you know, any cooking that you do in ridiculous bulk to feed an entire school is going to be a bit mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sort of struggles with the fact that, you know, people have an opinion of her like her food is only mediocre because they always eat it in the context of mass manufactured cafeteria food. But she's actually an incredible cook. But Haruna is a gourmand extreme. Like, really extreme. Which is not to say she's got a huge appetite. There's another character whose job it is to have the huge appetite.
There's got to be one.
But she has extremely exacting tastes in food. And bad things tend to happen to establishments that don't serve her extremely good food.
They explode?
Yes, they tend to explode.
Oh,
She is the gourmet terrorist, basically. If you're a food serving establishment, it is in your best interests to make sure your food is exquisite, just in case Haruna decides to visit, because you won't have a business anymore if it's not. Somehow she has yet to be caught, or rather, she has been caught several times, but always seems to manage to break out of jail somehow. Which becomes a plot point at another point in the story, because apparently she as a background event that is not center screen, she and the gourmet club have staged a raid on an aquarium because there is a rare fish there, and Haruna wants to find out what it tastes like.
oh, that's sane.
As you do.
It seems perfectly reasonable to me. I don't know what your problem could be with this. I am interred for my entire DPS cooldown.
Be
Fantastic.
interred. You'll ruin your DPS run.
Alright, this really hurts when she does her acid rain somewhere in this. So you might want to heal back up to full.
Even if you say that, healing is very slow.
I forget when
That's
she does it, but it's coming sometime soon.
You have freaking lasers in a moment.
That yeah, so shenanigans. But yeah, she's got a habit of an admiration for Fuka's cooking, just sort of kidnapping her so that she can cook things that she finds for her. Fuka has never agreed to this. In fact, Fuka deeply resents the amount of chaos that Haruna brings to the cafeteria on a regular basis. However, Haruna seems blind to the fact that Fuka doesn't like her very much. and that perhaps kidnapping her all the time might influence her opinion in some way.
That's just how you make friends.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
There it is.
Oh, it does rather smart.
That does. I am so glad I got Radiant Agents off of that. I'm gonna slap my book at you. Stupid vampire. Thingy.
She's not a vampire, she's a sucky bitch.
Well, she's now a corpse. Alright, we should keep
that's right.
moving though, because we're limited on time.
So, other gacha that ate up all my time this week. So I finished last week the first chapter of Avalon Le Fay. So the Fae are kind of dickheads.
Yeah.
Like, it's just generally, but I'm glad that they didn't go full retard and just make all the Fae unrepentant dickheads.
Let's leave the dungeon. I need to turn on my overlay that lets me see Mage's Guide on top of the screen.
Alright, I want to grab a couple of potions anyway.
Yeah, so I don't have to keep tabbing, because there's some stuff we just don't want to pull if we don't have to coming up, because we're about to hit the floor set change. So let me close the game and I'll log back in a sec. Keep going, Ball.
Like, there are definitely Fae characters who are deeply, deeply horrible individuals.
Yes.
However, they are not really appreciably more horrible than some of the other horrible individuals that you meet over the course of the story. Like, there are just bad people everywhere is basically the gist of it. It's just that the Fae have a strong tendency to be bad simply because, well, humans are different from them and they don't really see humans as being worthy of being treated as equals. Though there are Fae that differ on this opinion, it's something that they've got to, it's like a conclusion they have to come to. It's not natural to them. Because humans are just these things, right? They're a subordinate class in society. The Fae live a very, very long time, and when one of the Fae dies, another Fae will simply be born to fill their place, basically. They will be the inheritor of that Fae's job, because the idea is that every Fae has a name and a purpose. And they live as long as they have that purpose and can fulfill it. And their name is sort of tied to that and to some extent, although it's not necessarily clear. But because of this, because humans are not like that, it sort of it makes them considered as a type of cattle, sort of. A very entertaining type of cattle, and it seems to be fairly common for Fae to marry humans in that setting, except that they don't really, like, for a Fae to marry a human doesn't necessarily overlap directly with a human's concept of marriage, because it just seems to be something that a Fae does to entertain themselves, more or less, and will, subordinate the human to that Fae's impulses to some extent. Like, for instance, there is a Fae in the story who's, like, she has married very many people in the past, but her tendency is to eat her partners.
Oh, that's
just like part of her intrinsic nature is to just eat her partners eventually. Like, that's because she's a Fae, she has a abnormal nature compared to humans, and when she loves someone, she will eventually be overwhelmed with the impulse to eat them.
Right.
That's just how she is, because she's not human.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so rather than the Fae being strictly evil, although there are some you can make a strong argument are strictly evil, they're more or less just slaves to their impulses. They lack what in a human would be creativity, so they only copy things humans do, but they have so much power to do it that they can just brute force anything that they want into existence, more or less. So everything ends up being sort of a hollow copy of what humans do. Like, they've built their society in an imitation of human society, and they've built cities and things. There is no religion in Fae Britain whatsoever, because there are no gods, because the Fae are the dominant supernatural force. Yet they have cathedrals, because they've got this vague idea that humans build cathedrals.
Right.
And that type of thing. So it's a very weird world, which is like a mishmash of human culture and the sort of bizarro reinterpretation of human culture that Fae do when they can only see superficially what things are and what they're for and want to copy them.
But without understanding
And-
why.
Yeah, but by and large, they have so much power that it's not like anybody can dethrone them from that. Although the different cities sort of run the gamut. Like, there are a couple of cities where humans have different degrees of acceptance. Like, because Fae are very pure, they are easily manipulated. So there is in which one was it? In Norwich, there are lots of situations where Fae are basically human slaves without realizing it. They're basically slaves to human owners, even though that wouldn't explicitly be the case because no Fae would ever accept that. But because Fae are kind of dumb in a very specific sense, they can be tricked into exploitative work by a sufficiently canny human. And in I think Salisbury, humans are sort of like accepted, generally speaking, though they are often slaves, and the Fae don't view anything wrong about that. The humans aren't treated as like they're mistreated. They're treated as they're a normal part of society. Sometimes they're owned by Fae. This is just the way things are. In Londinium, they're basically equal. Humans and Fae are considered equal in terms of rights. So there are different places. In Gloucester, everybody is bought and sold, more or less. Doesn't matter who or what they are. So the various cities are ruled by various powerful Fae, and they have different attitudes towards, the social dynamics and so on and so forth. So it's a very bizarre world, very, very far from normal human history. As far as the Lost Belts go, like one of the great mysteries of the story is that nobody can work out exactly how they ended up wandering so far away from human history. When, like, for each of the other Lost Belts, there might be a fantastical but very clear point in history where there's a deviation. Like, this thing happened in this particular age of human history or age in mythic history or whatever, which caused the whole world to go down a different path. But it's just not obvious at all how Fae Britain came to be, because the entire order of the world is so bizarro compared to conventional human history. So,
are we still on part 1 of 2 for?
Part 2 is out. Part 1 I have finished. Part 2 I'm partway through.
Okay.
Because part 2 seems to be very long, and the battles are quite tough. So I haven't made as much progress in it yet. So part 1 basically tackles the arrival and establishment of what the general vector is of the exploration of Fae Britain. So, as always, the entry to the Lost Belt turns into a big mess, and this ends up on a big divergent spree where a lot of people get separated. And then for chapter 1, the story basically splits into 2 parts. There is one part that is, the conventional story of the main character is sort of running about trying to figure out where he's supposed to go, what he's supposed to do, who he needs to talk to, who he can requisition help for, the normal thing. And then there's Mash's story, where Mash has been completely split off from the main party. She doesn't know who she is, where she is, what she's for. She doesn't know whether she's a human or a Fae, because she sees both of them are in this world, but she doesn't realize that she's from outside the world. She's just this person with no memory and is trying to figure out who she is, what she's supposed to be doing, and she gets drafted into all kinds of causes as a result. And so there's a lot of story that is just very focused on Mash to the exclusion of what's going on. It's important to the political dynamics of Fae Britain and is influences and is influenced by things that are happening in the main story, because, a lot of people don't seem to realize Britain is not a very big place. Like,
No, it is not.
Geographically. Yeah, it's not much bigger than New Zealand. It was roughly the same size as New Zealand, I suppose.
Give or take a little bit, yeah.
Except, in the modern world, people think of it as being a big place because there's 80 million people living there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more than that, because about 10 million illegals are likely to be there. But
Most people live in London and the other big cities.
But so there's actually those 2 stories being told, and you meet Castoria pretty early on in the story, and the main character, the protagonist character's path, and basically it's you tagging along with her and her tagging along with you, depending on where you're going, trying to work out what the best course of action is when both of you are kind of dorks with no clue of what you're supposed to be doing. So there's a lot of, particularly until you manage to reconnect with Da Vinci, there's a lot of getting led by the nose by various people because you don't have a clue what you're doing as a protagonist. Not that you're really making the choices, it's just a story, but yeah, it's the first part is there's a lot of exploring and laying down like the basic lay of the land as it would be seen by a casual onlooker. As things go on, though, particularly into the second part of the story, you see sort of like a lot more of what's below the surface. Who has actually got the power here? Who are the movers and shakers? Who is actually pulling strings here, and who is just being allowed to think that they're pulling strings? So yeah, I'm partway through that story, and basically the stakes have been ratcheted up at that point. The battle lines are starting to be drawn because the Lost Belt King, basically, in part 1, doesn't really care about Chaldea at all. They don't have a Tree of Emptiness in their Lost Belt. It was destroyed 2,000 years ago. And yet, the Lost Belt is still there. And nobody knows why. And it is causing instability in the future, in the sense that the whole reason that you actually go to Fey Britain in the first place, story-wise, is because despite the fact that they had been written off as a non-threat because they don't have a Tree of Emptiness anymore, the future prognostication that is being done by Chaldea has found that so long as it exists, there's actually no future for the world. The world will end just because it exists. So they've got no choice but to go there and investigate. So yeah, it's basically it's mysteries upon mysteries upon mysteries throughout the story. And the story is quite long, and a lot of traveling happens. Like, if they had tried to set this story in America, it would have failed suspension of disbelief, because the amount of time that they spend moving between cities, like they give you a relatively clear time scale for the story. Like, part 1 takes place over the course of about 25 days, and you basically visit practically every city in Britain over the course of that time. If it was set in the American continent, that wouldn't make any sense because you couldn't travel that fast.
You can go to San Fran, to Atlanta, to New York, to Phoenix, all back and forth in a reasonable time frame.
Which is why I mentioned the size of Britain, because it's really highlighted what a small place it is, in effect, by the amount of shuttling back and forth between cities, because each of the cities is basically run by like a city-state, and the different characters who hold the power in those cities have very radically different outlooks on your faction, and whether or not they should back you, whether or not they should back the Lost Belt King, whether or not they should just try and stand at the side and profit from both, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's been quite an engaging story, but it is quite a lengthy one. There are 3 parts to it, and parts 1 and 2 are out. I don't know when part 3 will be out, because while the English version has been expedited slightly, like everything has come a little bit faster than it did in Japan, there was a big gap between part 2 and part 3 in Japan, and I don't know how big the gap will be in the English version, because there is, I think, 6th anniversary is scheduled to happen next week, but I think 6th anniversary happened in mid-July in Japan, and then Lost Belt Part 3, Lost Belt 6 Part 3 came out in August. I'm not 100% sure about that. So I don't know what the timescale is going to be for the English version of the story. Yeah, but not really too sure what's going on there, because the timescale is very different. But and there's also, I think there's supposed to be a Narrowfest in there somewhere, which would put things off by about a week. Not 100% sure. I think the next summer event comes after part 3 as well, and the summer event is like late August or something, which is an odd time to put summer. But
you're kind of running out of summer at that point.
Yeah. At any rate, I threw a whole pile of tickets at Melusine's banner and got one copy of her. I got a whole bunch of other 4-stars that I didn't want as well, so I can't say that I was short on gold that time, but I threw about 80 tickets at her and I managed to get her, which leaves me with exactly 1,800 Saint Quartz untouched for Koyanskaya's and Oberon's banners, which is good because that means that I can hit pity on both of them if necessary.
Did you get Team Gawain?
No, because that's on Morgan's banner and I didn't roll on Morgan's banner.
Oh.
Yeah, most people blew all of their quartz on Morgan's banner, but I blew on Melusine's banner because I need to add another Dragon Girl to the collection, and also because she's incredibly meta. But I've collected lots of Dragon Girls so far, so having another one just fits in with the rest of the theme. But eventually she establishes herself as one of the best farmers in the game, but I only have her at NP1, so for me, she's probably not going to be superior to Space Ishtar, who's sort of like my go-to, I just want to wipe the stage out because it's in my way type of stages. And Melusine sort of comes into her own when you've got Koyanskaya and Oberon to give you flexibility of how you dole out your NP charges. And in that format, she's one of the best farmers that there is in the game. So, yeah, I might, since 6th anniversary is coming up next week, I might go in for her GSSR banners. There are a lot of different GSSR banners this time, which gives you more granular control over who you're going to get if you decide to pull on it, but also makes it harder to pick what banner you're going to roll on, since lots of things you might want will be mutually exclusive to each other, and you're going to have a lot of... And everybody is going to have a small pool with a very high chance of getting the Damp Squib one from that pool. Which is always a problem with GSSR. Like the one...
Honestly, they could afford to just give you a pick tick.
Well, they do give you a pick tick.
Oh, I meant for the GSSRs on with all the newer stuff.
Oh no, they're not going to give you a new one. If they were going to give you a pick ticket for a new servant, then nobody would roll the gacha. That would completely destroy their business model.
It's I don't know. If you could only have one, I would imagine the big spenders are going for multiple. They could throw a bit of a bone there. They already get all your money whenever you roll out.
From their point of view, they are, because they give you a free 5-star ticket at the anniversary as well, where you can just choose whichever one you want from the older ones. But they're not going to give you a new one because they need people to roll on banners in order to make money. Like they would not be able to like justify it internally, because it's not about whether or not the developers feel generous. It's whether or not they can justify leaving money on the table to the people controlling the purse strings. Because anytime you give something that is the new hotness to somebody for free, the accountants are going to see, but why? You didn't gain any users from this. You wouldn't lose any users if you don't do it. You're just giving money away for no reason.
I'm aware there are practical problems there. It scratches at the back of my head.
Well, I mean, you're always gonna run into that, because number one, this is a gacha game, and number two, first it's like, oh, I don't want GSSR, I want to pick ticket, and then it's like, I don't want to pick ticket from those ones, I want to pick ticket from these ones. Like, there's no limit to that greed. Like, both parties are just going to be unlimited greediness here, but one party has all the power, so you're not going to be able to expect very much.
Oh, goodness gracious!
All right.
So we should probably go to a break because we're
that's basically the end of it anyway.
Yep. Okay, let's do that, and then we'll dive back into Palace of the Dead.
Yep. All right. Here's some music, folks. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Nielsen did it.
So we were on Balls Week still.
I'm done with that.
Okay. I will send us into the next floor set of Palace of the Dead now that I have my overlay turned on. I'm not the party leader. I can't do that.
I am apparently the party leader.
Unfair.
You give me party leader.
Hang on. Wait. There you go.
So I had to, for those that are unaware, when I'm doing the show, I have the overlay turned on to just put the Palace of the Dead guide on the same monitor, so I don't have to be flipping between two monitors while also trying to do the show. And there's stuff we don't want to pull in this floor set onwards, and I don't particularly feel like accidentally pulling it. So absolutely everything, if you have the overlay pulled up, has the big caution symbol next to it in this floor set, Fern, except for the Gremlins.
Right. Gremlins just
It all does something terrible, so try not to die.
Ah,
Yeah,
great.
trying to talk and trying to do the show at the same time as this floor set is taking our lives into our hands, basically.
Yeah, I fully
Yeah.
expect us to wipe. Like
I've got a
it's
couple
not,
of Time Worn artifacts, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I expect this to all go to pot, but what can you do?
Yeah.
I had a week. It was mostly work and going to job sites, a lot of job sites, and working at job sites, and hanging precariously off the edge of cliffs.
Oh,
into
that sounds
pits.
safe.
No, no, just groundwater this time. But me hanging off the edge, trying to pull up a float to intentionally trigger a fault to check the control panel so I could do a proper startup and get everything marked off. So yeah, that's where the majority of my week went. When I got home this week, I was so tired from basically just having to do so much random garbage at work that all I had the energy to do was watch Neurosonic clips.
That's
Oh, yeah, I could-
That is really sort of like slovenly scraping the bottom of the barrel behavior, really.
I was so exhausted every single day. I couldn't even get home and play Vidget, and Ava had most of the weekdays off this week. I could have found some Vidget to play, but I didn't have the gas for it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is I'd leave my left monitor logged onto Final Fantasy and sitting out in front of the Dark Steel ore thingamadoodle, the spawn node, where it spawns out in Corthus Central Highlands. And I would just find Neurosonic clips to watch.
Yeah.
So she is the swarm that is approaching. And
Why
she's
the
going to change.
swarm?
I've watched
I don't know why the swarm is a thing with Neuro. That's
she's building a swarm.
she's been building it for a while now.
Yeah, that's how she takes over the world.
According to her, it's composed of mermaids, fairies, and various other strange things that will eventually take over the world with her.
Yes, but she's waiting on parts. She still needs to put legs on them or something.
Yeah,
Even
Don't-
the mermaids. Yeah,
don't,
I've watched a few Neuro clips over the week, and not so much for Neuro herself. It's more watching Videl's descent into madness.
poor guy. He's
Poor
trying
guy.
so hard. You know what, I'm gonna
He
pull
has
this 'cause this
created
needs
the
to kill.
embodiment of chaos itself, is what he's done.
Well, what he's done is he's created a retarded little girl that he now has to manage.
Yeah. You notice how he doesn't let her do crossovers on her own anymore?
Yeah, because her new 2.0, well, 3.0 now, because he updated it again.
Yeah.
It requires a bit of driving
Yeah.
because its AI is a little messed up, and it will tell him that there's a problem with my AI repeatedly.
Constantly.
And if he's not there to babysit it, things can get a little out of whack.
Yeah. And even if, even before that, he just couldn't trust her. She would not behave herself.
Well, he sits there with the control panel open
Yes.
and will eject things from her mouth that are about to come out if they're going to cause problems with certain long-nosed groups of people.
Yeah. Like having him catch her about to swear and say something really horrible, and then having Neuro deny it.
Oh, he has just all swear words on the filter now.
Yeah, filtered.
Well, the problem is that she manages to come up with things that he hasn't thought of to filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was one clip I watched where he was collabing with another VTuber. I forget who it was exactly, but refused to call her by name. She would just refuse to call her as Vidal, even though Vidal could see what
that
was
was
going
Annie.
on. That was Annie.
That was Annie. Yeah. Annie is Neuro's mama. She's the one that made the new model that Neuro uses.
But even though the AI could still see and recognize Annie, it would still call her Vidal.
Yeah, it's just...
Just why?
Shy Lily is a VTuber that is a Raging Ethot.
Yes.
But she is also has some of the best visual acting for a VTuber possible. And she did a collab with Neurosama. And it was something. Watching
I refuse to watch anything of her on principle. Like, her entire career is about sticking things up her hoo-hoo. Like, that's her whole thing. That's all she does.
Is she on Twitch, perchance?
I don't know.
Because that sort of thing seems to happen a lot of Twitch.
But she is functionally there just to give the audience the say what face whenever Neuro has a Neuro moment,
which is
during their collab, which Neuro had a whole lot of when they were collabing. And the best part was when Neuro just went on to this tangent about how bowling balls are the prettiest balls and how they're not safe to touch.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just feel so sorry for Vito. You've created a monster, my man.
It's a monster that makes him a lot of money.
It is, but a monster nonetheless.
This is sort of like he accidentally had a child out of wedlock and he didn't even get to do the fun part.
All right.
So I like watching Neuro clips. They're very funny to me, and it's all because I just know it's a robot and a retarded robot.
Yeah.
So
in a robot that even when it's working perfectly still refuses to behave itself.
Yeah. So I just I very much enjoy the Neuro streams.
You gonna get that one?
And we'll often watch streams of her when I just don't have any brain for anything, because I haven't been really into the Hololive stuff recently. The girls haven't really been doing anything very interesting with Hololive stuff that I find interesting. So I haven't been.
A lot of them are also having sort of overlapping breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
so
there are like ones like Kelly who refuse to take breaks even though they were supposed to.
Kelly's just gonna fall over one of these days, and that'll be it.
Yeah, well, she does sort of go into sort of lull periods where she does sort of lower key content to rest, but she doesn't like stopping streaming. She gets bored.
Yeah, last time she did one of those, she came back with a completely new version of her character and a handmade video clip.
Yeah, like she just works on something else if she goes on holiday. So, yeah, and there's other ones like Gura who are basically AWOL, ones like Bay who are normally very busy but are sick again and have to prepare for a concert despite not having a voice at present.
Yeah.
Yeah. So haven't really been following them, and
I have to say I'm actually very impressed with A-Chan's English. Just over the last couple of months, she's starting to lose her accent. She still gets tripped up on the R's and L's like a lot of Japanese people do, but beyond that, she's really good.
Yeah.
Well, she's got a strong incentive to get better at it now that so much of the talent is coming out of English-speaking countries, or at least English-speaking. And she's, from all accounts, she was very, very excited about her first trip to America. So
yeah, so good for her.
But yeah, I unfortunately don't have any new media to talk to you guys about. I was just too burnt after work to sit down and play anything. I didn't have the gas for it.
Well, what's on your short list?
Right now, in 2 weeks, I got Trails into Reverie. Before that, I don't have anything planned. So I'll just probably play the first thing that pops into my head that I get my fingers on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of story Zen games I want to go through. I want to sit down and I want to go through the Blue Archive story. I want to go through the FGO story, but there's a safety in there that I just didn't.
Okay.
Excuse me.
That's you. All right.
But there's a lot of stories I want to go through, so I might do those. I might get distracted by something else. Nothing's set in stone yet. I'll have some form of media to talk to you guys about.
Yeah.
But
in that case, we've got the Nintendo thing this week because they just popped up out of nowhere and said, "Oh, here's our direct."
Yeah.
As
I
they
did
will
check the
do.
mailbox. There's nothing in it.
No, nothing.
Yeah, I did too. There's nothing in there.
But yeah, the Nintendo one, I watched it. I did, but I don't really remember much of it because it seemed very Nintendo.
It did, didn't
I
it?
skipped all the Pokemon stuff.
You're not missing a whole lot at this point because it's just expansions for Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, it's all the Pokemon stuff after Fish and Chips. It's just, you need to win me back. You lost me.
Scarlet
Sorry.
and Violet could very well have done that if it worked properly.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I did not.
I didn't see too many problems from the VTubers I watched playing it. Well, I say watched; it was sort of on in the background.
Yeah.
But they did have issues.
Playing
it was
through
not.
it, I have found some rather irritating bugs. Like if you look in the wrong direction, sometimes your frame rate just tanks.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw a lot of Ina cheering on her Switch to try and encourage it to process faster.
Yeah, the Switch just refuses.
All right, you guys are going to be the star against the Devilites.
I don't remember what they do. They do
Spikes.
Ice spikes. That's the one.
Oh right.
So don't touch it. I need to avoid moving into close range.
Yep. No stabbing.
No book smacking.
Yeah. So there were a few things that stood out, and I think we just start off with the elephant in the room. Is the Mario RPG remake?
Okay.
Well, it's an elephant for some people. It's a total non-event for me. Like I don't understand the appeal at all because I never played the original. And
Yeah.
as far as I can tell, it actually doesn't have any appeal unless you played the original.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just looks like a very mid Mario game. Otherwise,
It's So I love Super Mario RPG, and I am not excited for this remake at all.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with any of the corpo type reasons I would normally give for a remake like this. That's a small part of it. But the main reason is there is no reason to remake Super Mario RPG. It's a product of its time that works just fine on the console it's already on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get that it's not as accessible, but that's Nintendo's fault for not knowing how to re-release stuff.
is it inaccessible? Like, can you buy it on the eShop or whatever?
No.
I don't know. It has a wonky licensing deal because Original Enix is the copyright holder for it.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, so it's been in licensing limbo forever.
Yeah, like as far as remakes go, you can probably trust Nintendo more than any other company to just give it a fresh coat of paint and not touch anything else. Since Nintendo tends to have inertia, something horrible.
It's not
Yeah.
just inertia. I think that they also Nintendo being the type of organization that it is and the type of place that it's situated, I think they have a sort of a sense that the totems of the past have a sort of sacredness to them and they
Yeah.
shouldn't be violated.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just Super Mario RPG is, if you play the game, you'll understand what I say when I mean it is very much so a product of its time. It feels like a SNES game, and that trailer looked like they're just porting over a SNES game
Yeah.
to modern hardware and giving it a
Realistically,
really
there's a lot of people who only want that. Like that's exactly what they asked
That's
for.
exactly what they want. But the thing is that it never really went away. It's just changed name, honestly, because you got the Mario and Luigi series, which is very good.
Well, you had its spiritual successors, but none of them are the same as Super Mario RPG
No,
in the way it's presented. I'll point this out to you with the pantomiming that Mario does in the trailer that they're carrying over. Mario can't talk. He's a silent protagonist in Super Mario RPG.
Yes.
So the way the game conveys him explaining situations is he will pantomime whatever he's trying to tell the characters, and he does this by ooh. I almost killed myself.
Yeah, you did. Don't do that.
Work.
The way he does this is by pantomiming, by transforming himself into the characters that are involved and making very angry faces.
Yeah.
And this, it looked really off to me when I saw it happen with the new coat of paint, because this was something they did as a artistic way to use the limitations of the SNES originally.
Mm-hmm.
It is very much so not the case with this, where they're doing it because the old game did it, and I can respect that in a way. But at the same time, it just looks really off.
Yeah, they may have been better off replacing it with what they did with Mario and Luigi, where they just babble some vaguely Italian-sounding gibberish, and every character would then just repeat back what they said.
Yeah, okay, door's open.
Okay, let's move.
If Italy weren't in Europe, they would have been done for racism for that by now.
I think Mario gets a pass on it where nobody else would. Just because it's Mario.
Italians are just foreign enough that you can get, like, foreign points, but they're also white, so you don't go too far down the foreign point ladder. They're kind of in a weird limbo.
The Mediterranean.
They are.
Yeah. Oh, good. We got Serenity right out the gate. Ain't that nice?
Neat. Alright, what else we got in this thing?
The much more interesting thing, I thought, was the new 2D Mario game.
Yes! Multiple characters and some seriously weird-looking world design.
Yeah, it's like the whole thing was made with an acid trip in mind.
Yeah.
Or they were actually doing acid when they made it.
And getting American Mario 2 vibes off it. Go into the negative world.
Yeah, it's trippy.
It is seriously trippy.
You eat some shroom or flower thing, and you start tripping balls and go into this wonder world or whatever, where Mario starts growing and shrinking, and you can turn to an elephant, and
yeah, it's the usual rules of the world just go completely out the window.
Much like when somebody tries to describe an LSD trip, this is something that is very difficult to do, and you're going to have to just go watch the trailer yourself.
Yeah. And it's 4-player co-op, and it looks like actually a fairly good, fun time.
Yeah.
Nothing that's going to set the world on fire exactly, but yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was far more interesting than the Super Mario RPG remake, because I don't want to sound like I'm just old and like the SNES was good enough for me, but that's kind of how I met with it.
Well, you are old, and it was. So
Now get off my lawn.
Like, we don't need an update. The SNES is good enough. But that's just kind of how I feel, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some SNES games still look really good today. See Donkey Kong, for example, but others have not aged all that well. And a fresh coat of paint.
Super Mario RPG was one of the ones that aged incredibly well.
Yeah, and
it had that. Yeah, it did. It had that very clay-looking aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to do a proper, like, 3D cartoon that would look janky and weird, they stuck with the pseudo 3D clay look, and that aged just fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm just flicking through. There is another note here about E3, but we'll come back to that.
So
yeah, everything else really from the Nintendo thing was a kind of a no-go. Like, there was a new Splatfest for Splatoon, and that's nothing really new, and new expansions.
The only thing it did was remind me how terrible that foam thing at that other.
That was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like it just made it look even worse in retrospect.
Yeah, because this is what Splatoon is. You're making a shit copy. Stop.
Yeah.
There is a reason why companies do not make copies of Nintendo games.
Oh, can't use the raising as much as I would like to.
I mean, you can. Please don't.
Oh.
Yeah, no, Serenities are
Item
too
penalty.
valuable. Yeah, Serenities are too valuable to give up.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna remove this thing.
Let's just get this thing out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on the last floor of the floor set, but we need to cut our way to the exit, and we got
We got one of these
a
dudes.
mess of
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
two
else
of
did
these
they have?
dudes.
They had there was a Mario Kart expansion.
the WarioWare thing.
The WarioWare looks suitably insane.
It looks like a WarioWare. That's all I got from it.
Like, this is what happens when you do a design document while everybody in the room is drunk. And
Yeah.
that's where WarioWare's strength has always been. It's just been completely ridiculous and over the top. They have lent a bit more on full motion controls this time around, and I'm not sure I appreciate that too much. But
Nintendo's not going to give up on their motion controls anytime soon, I don't think.
no, they're not. All right. There is also more Konosuba coming, apparently. That's nice to know.
Yeah, and doing another season. I haven't caught up with the books since Book Depository shut down. I haven't really caught up with a lot of the light novels I was following. I'm sad that it went down because I don't want to buy from Amazon, but now I don't really have any choice left.
Yep. You're kind of boned on that front. Other little nuggets is they're doing re-releases of Pikmin 1 and 2, before Olimar became a MacGuffin. But and apparently you have to rescue him again in 4, even though you rescued him in 3. So, I don't know. Make that what you will.
Bro, this is bad.
Yeah, this is bad.
Okay, we're good. We are relying on me keeping aggro, by the way. I actually have to pay attention.
Oh, I don't want this. Yeah. Okay. We should actually pay proper attention on this.
Yeah, he hurts.
He does. He hits like a
I'm
truck.
having to... Yeah, I have to kite the whole time. And I'm not a red mage today, so I do not have the ability to... I should be...
I never shake the feeling when playing Summoner that I should be pressing more buttons than I actually have.
No.
But no.
I wish you would stop kiting him over top of me. The amount of healing that I have to do is double normal.
Ouch, ouch, ouch,
I'm-
ouch, ouch, ouch.
Like, you just invariably bring him repeatedly over top of me at the exact moment he swings his sword.
I'm used to him not having a second target for his those things, so I'm used to having to intentionally place them in the middle, but I have you guys, so I don't need to do that. Who got
did it again, I'm gonna fucking die!
Oh, you are so dead. Oh, no, he's alive.
You're alive!
Thanks to you. My goodness. Stop bringing him towards me. I'm spending the entire time either healing myself or running away from you.
Okay, we're just gonna go in a circle around the outside since I have you guys to drop the other crap around the arena.
Come back here. Oh no.
Oh, well, I got nowhere to go.
Not doing any damage.
That's fine, just...
Okay, we're gonna start over here.
Back.
If I was solo, I would pop a steal for this, but I'm playing it a little loose. Because this guy just hits like a tanker truck.
He does. Good gravy does.
I need him not to crit.
I'm just going to keep my Swift cast on cooldown then. Watch out.
Stop trying to kill me, you people!
Oh, Fern, that's dangerous.
Alright, we good?
He's dead.
Good grief, you guys were more hazardous to me than the boss.
I'm used to having to intentionally place those circles in the middle of the battlefield before I go to the outside. I'm not used to him being able to target other people with them.
Whew. That was crazy.
I'm one facts. Ooh, yeah.
Alright, probably best we don't carry on any further because we'll have
it gets really
It's gonna get
difficulty.
It will go badly for us. We will get our shit pushed in.
Yep.
The difficulty ramp from that floor onwards is ridiculous.
It's a cliff face.
So
Yeah,
last couple of things out of the Nintendo thing is there is a new Princess Peach game in the works, which apparently she gets the dress spheres, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't show a whole lot about it.
Menopause simulator
girl.
No, not again. She's already done that once.
When has doing something once in the past stopped a Mario game from repeating itself?
I am going to stick my fingers in the ear and pretend you're not right. La 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 la.
So we could get Menopause Simulator too.
We could. Pikmin 1 and 2 remaster. I think they had a better idea of what to expect in 4. They've got a sequel to Detective Pikachu.
I can't with Detective Pikachu. The voice is too much.
It is just too much.
it's a
He's
hair
so
too much.
hard-boiled.
He is hard-boiled and he is a serious coffee addict. His liver is going to explode at some point, probably.
If he was actually drinking whiskey, they might have pushed it far enough over the line that I'd be like, yeah, I'm on board with this.
I mean, yeah, but
well,
at
the
the
thing
same
is that
time,
you can't. It's Japanese media. They're really sensitive about that kind of.
Like, if you wanted to do it properly, you'd have him sucking on a whiskey flask the entire game. But that's a bit too far to push it, I think. And that's about it for Nintendo. Some neat stuff in there, but nothing really well.
It was very Nintendo.
Very Nintendo.
It did have announcements and actual video gameplay in it, though.
Yes.
That's true. There was less pre-rendered cutscene exclusively. But there was also, like, basically nothing in there was worth caring about if it wasn't, like, a first-party title, as usual.
Yeah.
Like, they just keep showing things like Vampire Survivors, like, who cares?
I mean, Holocure exists. It's better.
Yeah,
no, it's not only that, but everybody who is interested in Vampire Survivors is already playing it.
Yes, because it's
and
$5.
It's on phones. It's on phones, and it's not exactly the most system-demanding game in the world.
Yeah.
Well,
and
for most of the time.
its flesh in the pan is pretty much over.
Yeah. The only other game I think that was announced in the last week that Vol really wanted to talk about was Fate Samurai Remnant.
I don't really have anything much to talk about other than to just sort of like generally squee.
Yes.
Like because there are very few games that I'm looking forward to, and this was one of them. And I wasn't expecting to actually get a release date, but it is coming out in September, and I'm quite pleased about that. Like, reality for me, it doesn't really matter if it's any good or not because it's a Fate game, and I'm going to play it regardless of whether or not it's good.
Yep.
I'm just sort of, as usual, pretty salty that in New Zealand you can't get collector's editions of anything that are any good.
Yep.
But yeah, it's they're doing a full-fledged action game with a bunch of old characters, a bunch of new characters. They're bringing in Jolta as a lancer, Musashi as a berserker. Interesting variation on the norm. Not really sure what they're going to do with it, but it seems to like they're going for a story-driven action game. The action is likely to be incredibly jank because, well, it's Koei Tecmo. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't have high expectations for the action, but I don't need high expectations for the action because I'm not a connoisseur like Ari. I just want to hit things.
Sense.
But yeah, they're bringing in some new characters, new servants people haven't seen before, and so on and so forth. And they're going to, dance that old dance of fighting a Holy Grail war for reasons. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing a piece of Fate media actually come out because Extra Record has been frustrating me for so long by never ever coming out.
Mm-hmm. It's not another one set in the Moon Cell, is it? Because that would be.
It's a remake of the original Fate Extra, which had a good story but incredibly jank mechanics.
It did, didn't it?
I've played through that on PSP, but and I would like to play through it again with a nicer presentation, but it just doesn't seem to be getting very far production-wise, which there doesn't really seem like there's any excuse for it since the basic layout of the game is already done since it's a remake. So I don't know why it's taking so long. The main reason I want it to come out and be successful is because that way they'll do CCC as well, which there's never been an English version of, so I don't really know what went on in there.
Yeah, there's a janky fan patch for it, I think, but
No, there's no fan patch for it. I don't think. I think that the bulk of the way people experience it is just watching the Let's Play of the guy who painstakingly subtitled everything himself.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
That sounds familiar, right?
Yeah, that's how a lot of stuff has to be consumed. Like the alternative version of Camelot that takes place in FGO Arcade, because FGO Arcade the story plays out differently to the way it does in FGO Mobile, and they arrive at Camelot early before the Lion King has taken over, and when the Crusaders are still fighting over Jerusalem, and the story plays out at that time because Chaldea intervenes then, so the Lion King doesn't come along and obliterate everybody. So the story plays out differently, but nobody in the West can experience it because there's no English version because it's an arcade game. And the only way to see it is to watch it being painstakingly subtitled by somebody autistic enough to actually do it. That arcade game, incidentally, is now in maintenance mode. Realistically, the poor bastards just struck at the wrong time, and they, at the time that they really needed to be hitting their stride, the COVID lockdown started happening, and that sort of thing doesn't really bode well for physical arcades. But it's just there is now a game that I'm actually looking forward to that actually has a release date. So I'm going to call that something to be optimistic about. It's already up on Steam as well, so it's going to have a PC version. I just hope they don't do an exclusivity to a console or something for a limited time, because it will be very frustrating. It's frustrating enough with Final Fantasy 16.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of, we did get Yoshi P in an interview say that, yeah, a PC version's in the works, but you need to give him time to get it all put together.
Yeah, well, optimization is always a bugger when it comes to doing the PC port.
Yeah.
He was constrained by he was constrained by legal jargon because of the exclusivity deal that he couldn't confirm a PC release. But he basically, as soon as the release happened, he was like, "Yeah, PC version's coming."
Yeah.
Man, the exclusivity thing has just awoken all of the crappiest traits of the console war fanboys as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's that post that's gone viral of a guy showing himself like eating and drinking while doing the combat by just pressing one button over and over again. And it's like, oh, look how crap the combat is. I'm just pressing one button over and over again and I'm beating all these enemies, etc., etc. That has been community noted now. Because community notes are now a thing. So
yeah.
It's he's basically turned on automatic health regeneration, automatic this, automatic that, and everything, and he's only playing the prologue.
You paid for this.
Even then, I could probably find a way to time a single button press and not use the sticks, and mumble my way through the prologue of Devil May Cry 4 on Son of Sparta mode.
Quite possibly.
Well, it's got the same minds behind the action, so, I mean, there's a chance that the action is competent when actually being played for real.
I've seen a little bit. I've seen
people say that there is a lot of depth to it if you're willing to go into it, but because it's designed to be played by RPG players, most people will just turn the settings down enough for them to enjoy it. But if you want to go balls to the wall, you can.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of potential there. I'm very excited for when it comes to PC and to get to try it out myself, but like with all action games, it's gonna be... Oh, what's the way to put this? You gotta feel it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did put the Devil May Cry in there when he was like fresh off of his project, his DMC5 project.
Yeah.
So there's likely to be at least heritage detectable.
Yeah. At least they went all the way. If you're gonna do action, do an action game. Don't take half measures with it.
Don't do Final Fantasy 15 ever again, please.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Just if you're gonna make an action game, make an action game.
All right.
I kind of wish they wouldn't.
I mean,
I want RPGs. I don't want action games.
I'm okay with action games, but yeah, we do need more RPGs in general that are just RPGs and not RPG slash something else.
Yeah, like
Yeah, because the slash something else always like that's taking an extremely risky gamble that's just going to be mediocre at both, and there's no
Yeah.
reason to take that gamble.
yeah,
But if you're going to move away from the RPG, I would rather you go whole hog into whatever genre you're going to lean into, rather than go RPG slash something else.
yeah. Just commit.
And there are RPG elements in Final Fantasy 16, but the gameplay all looks like it leans very much so on action gameplay.
Yeah. Like that's
Like,
where
there's a level.
Stranger of Paradise really falls down. Like it's very actiony, but you've got these RPG elements kind of shoehorned on top of it.
Well, Stranger of Paradise works. The problem is Stranger of Paradise uses Neo's system, like point for point,
Yeah.
and Neo's system, Diablo eats your heart out.
Yeah.
The loot pinata in Neo system games is the biggest hurdle to get over because you get so much junk in those games.
Yes. Yes, you do.
It's like Titan Quest if you've got the filter turned off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just get
It's all grey.
so much junk, and there is no way.
Literally everything drops whatever it was carrying at the time.
Yeah, and I think they've got it up to the in Neo 2. They finally in a patch added a way for you to auto filter stuff at the end of a mission and just sell all crap below a certain quality.
Stranger of Paradise has that, but damn if I could figure out how to actually get it to work.
Yeah, it's buried in the options somewhere, just like it is in Neo. Because Stranger of Paradise just is Neo with a Final Fantasy skin on it.
With Chaos!
Yeah, and Jack needs to kill Chaos.
Jack needs to kill Chaos.
Have you killed Chaos yet?
I have not killed Chaos yet. Are you Chaos?
I am Chaos. You are Chaos. We must kill ourselves, or we must kill Chaos.
I am still quite alarmed at the amount of conversations that start with, "Are you Chaos?"
Is he not the brightest bulb in the drawer?
No. No, he is not.
No, he's not the sharpest crayon in the toolbox.
Yeah. And neither of his are his two hangers on.
No, they are quite special. That group
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
I'm honestly
They-
surprised that obligatory girl decides to hang around.
The bus they rode to school on was not very long.
No. It was probably driven by Chaos, though.
They probably thought it was.
Yeah.
They probably punched it. They probably punched the bus. The bus was Chaos.
I mean, props to Square Enix on that one. They didn't have to do what they did, but I am so glad they did. The Chaos meme is real.
It is just so dumb
It is so
that
unbelievably dumb, and I love it.
that you can't not love it for being just unapologetically stupid.
Yes. Alright. The only other thing I think that's really been announced, like this game about Tokyo Revengers, and it's freaking Uma Musume, of all things. You want
Yeah,
some horse
like-
girls?
I don't think I need to indulge in horse skill gacha.
I do not think
I
you do
was-
either.
Oh, that was the part of my week I blocked from my memory. Oh,
You played Horse Girl
Oh.
Gacha?
no,
Oh,
Psy
damn.
games.
Oh, just in
Oh,
general.
remember what they took from us.
Yeah.
I logged on to Shadowverse because they're having the anniversary. I at least wanted to get in and get the free packs because you get 10 free 10 packs a day, so you get 100 cards every day from any set that's currently in rotation.
That's a lot of cards.
Yeah, and they're retroactive too. So if you log in now, you get like it's day 9 of the 10, so you'll get like 90 of the packs right away today.
Damn. I should do that.
So yeah. So I logged on yesterday, and I was tooling around with the cards I got. Like, oh, let's see if I can make a deck. And you do know you have to kill the gate, right, Fern?
Oh, did you? I didn't even read the description. I was just killing guys for experience.
It's okay. I came in here and saved it for you.
Oh, wait, we're still going. Right.
Yeah, there's follow-up.
That's this one. It's been so long since I've done some of these fates.
But man, I logged on. I went into my build deck list, and I was playing Shadowcraft last, and just staring at me is Pudding.
Pudding?
Little Miyako. a little ghost,
That's
just
funny.
looking at me as my Shadowcraft leader, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's sad. I'll go make a Havencraft deck instead. And then there's Saren staring at me as my Havencraft leader.
Yeah, it's not Cygame's fault. It's Crunchyroll's.
Well, it's actually probably their decision. It's just a decision I can't exactly fault them for.
Yeah.
Getting in bed with Crunchyroll, maybe we can fault them for that.
Yeah. But, so yeah, log on Shadowverse if you are interested in collecting your free packs. And that's a thing you can do now.
Where's this guy going?
And, oh, he runs away.
He should be dead.
No, we gotta chase him.
Eh.
But yeah, that was sad. Made me remember.
I do
I
like
have
me
to kill
some
Turtle.
Shadowverse. I'm just not very good at it.
I got pretty good at it for a little bit there. I had a really good Swordcraft deck that I really liked, but I had a decent Shadowcraft deck for the rotation I came back for. But seeing Miyako there, it just hurt.
Yeah. No pudding for you.
No, I can have pudding. That's the problem.
You
I just can't go.
You can't use the proper pudding.
I can't see what happens with pudding in her future stories.
It's something involving pudding, probably.
My Bloodcraft leader is also Ilya.
You know, I can believe that. All right. In that case, let us wind down then, shall we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we're out of time.
All right.
Get moving.
Yep. All right, folks. Not a whole lot of big news this week other than the Nintendo thing, but yeah. Hopefully next week we'll have some more media to bring to you, and in a couple weeks I'll have new Trails game to talk to you about, so that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, y'all got anything for us on this out?
Nah,
Not really. Oh, I don't want to think about it. Avoiding thinking about work. I still haven't sent all of the reports for today.
Don't want to adult anymore. All right, let's do this.
Why are healers so bad? We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.